Hello everyone, I'm Santosh Tupad, and in this video we'll be doing a freestyle exploratory testing of this form only. We won't be going to any other links. For this purpose we'll be using a juice shop by OWASP, which is usually used for security testing, but we can use it for other types of testing as well. So we'll be performing various activities here and then see how we can understand about this form here and the whole application. Not whole application, but we'll be only testing this form here, what you see with all these fields. So let's refresh this page. We have this, and then let me increase the page size, or basically zoom level. We have set it to zoom level of 150% here, so you can see it clearly. We'll also do the tutoring of all these fields and try to understand what every field is really intending to have the input as. So you'll see user registration form. This is from OWASP Juice Shop. This is a test web application, and probably that's an e-commerce web page here. For instance, let's go to Juice Shop. So they sell juice here of various fruits, and then we can add to the cart and check out. So go to the login, but once I click on account, that's my first bug for user experience or with the navigation itself. So why can't I go directly to create an account here? Why only login? So this is like I have to first go to login and then click on not yet a customer. Now this is like you're going elsewhere and then you want to go elsewhere. I mean, it takes more time. If I know that I want to go to create a new customer, so that option has to be here, is what I feel now, as of now. So let's look into the user registration form of the create new account and try to understand what's happening here. So let's click on email. That shows up green here. Maybe that's the way they are showing because I clicked here. And let me click in password now. It gets marked as red border here, and also you see a error message called as please provide an email address. And once I tab out or click elsewhere, again this one turns to red, please provide a password. This looks like a client-side error message, but how do I confirm if it's client-side or server-side error message? Let me open my developer tools and then go to network tab. And let me dock this DevTools to the right and click in the password and then click elsewhere to trigger that error message. I clicked elsewhere. You see please repeat your password, but you don't see any request here, which means it's a client-side error message, which is probably coming from the JavaScript itself. So we saw this, please repeat your password. There's a consistency in the error messages which ends with a dot, and this one also ends with dot, so I'm using inconsistency oracle here. And I'm interested in seeing what is this show password advice. So what advice do I have to set the password? Let me turn this toggle on. I see these different things here, like at least one lower character, one upper character. I really feel that they could have said lowercase, uppercase, instead of just saying lower character and upper character. I'm not saying that these are bugs or issues or anything at this point. I'm learning about the application. I'm learning about this form specifically. Contains at least one digit, contains at least one special character, contains at least 8 characters. So this is a password policy. Now let me go to the next field here, which is a drop-down element. It says security question, and it appears that whenever you say asterisk here, the star, people usually think that, oh, it's a mandatory field. But maybe we can think of having that note here saying asterisk equals to required or mandatory field somewhere in this form. We currently don't see that, but that's a note as well. We see a list of questions here, and then I can think about doing a spell check as well, and if it makes sense, if there are repeated questions and these security questions make sense or not, uh, those things I can those tests I can perform here. Drop down element, and then the error message, please select a security question. And then we have a last field, answer, and the placeholder. This is called as a placeholder. Whenever I click here, that shows a default text here, and they're known as placeholders. So that says answer to your security question. I'll click elsewhere, and then the error. Looks like the way how the error messages are triggered are consistent. Whenever I go to the next tab or next field or click elsewhere, it shows up the error message. This says please provide an answer to a security question. We don't want to do it now. And this button looks like it's in disabled state. Now you may be seeing the element section here. I would go here and use this inspector element and bring it on top of the register button. Click here. I want to just understand what's happening here. Looks like some framework is being used, and you can see here disabled mat-button disabled, and disabled equals to true. But what if I make it false, which is a Boolean value? Let's say we're just playing around here to understand what's happening with the application. I click on false. This is still not enabled. Maybe there's something coming from the framework itself. This is my trial and error method. I'll just say enabled, and let's see what happens to the button. Oh wow, you see that the button is enabled now. So this enabled was actually responsible for this. And also let's try doing this true. If I make it true, disabled equals to true, it is still enabled. I think that it's coming from this piece of code here, which is a class of JavaScript. More chances, but that's for investigation and digging deeper with our developer tools to see where is that message coming from, or where is this class coming from for the button. So we got to understand certain aspects about these forms which we are testing here. Now, once we get all these notes here, what is my next test after understanding these things? So let me click on refresh again. We did for the error messages and all those things. Refresh, so that the DOM again goes back to its original state. Once this is refreshed, let's see what's happening. It's not refreshing. Let's see that. All right, we are here. Now there is an email address field. I want to test it for, the first thing would be, I always have a habit of using example.com domain. I don't want to say test@test.com because test.com is a valid domain. And if somebody has created an email address as test@test.com, they will receive the email from the product or application that you are testing, and that can reveal sensitive information to somebody unknown. So I have a habit of using this one until I'm testing something like email templates when I receive the activation email. So I would use my specific domain name, test domain, so which I have registered. So I'll create an inbox, and then I will use that email address in this field here. That's that's because we don't want to reveal sensitive information to any third party on the planet. So I use this, so we got to know that. But let's go to the next field here. I see something here which says 0 to 20. It goes off now, but let's do a refresh, because that's the behavior of this application, how it's functioning here. We see 0 to 20, which looks like only 20 characters are allowed. But here we see 0 of 40. Now that's an inconsistency, that's a bug to me. Why are we saying only 20 characters and 40 characters here? And which leads to confusion for a person who is using this application. And also it says password must be 5 to 40 characters long. Now let's see how this makes sense. It says 5 to 40 characters, but why are we only stopping at 20 here by giving that information? That's a bug as well in terms of inconsistency of how we are claiming something and then we are displaying something here. That's highly inconsistent, and that would be something that I would report. And we have a repeat password 0 to 40, so that has this password and this password has to match. Let's come from email, so I'll say example@example.com, and then password as I'll just use example@989. So that's that it don't give me any error message. Example@989. So how do I know whether I have entered correctly or not? And how would you believe me? So what I would do here is you use a HTML attribute which is input type, and there are two types here. One is text and one is password. So I will convert this to text. This is not committing to the server. This is just doing it on the client side, which is in my browser. So I click on that. So you see that I was actually speaking truth. And then we will also do the same for this, so that you know that I'm not lying to you. So both are correct now here. So this is green and this is 11 of 40, but 11 of 20. But what happens if I keep entering something more here? Well, that keeps increasing and there is no error if I click elsewhere. 32 of 20? That's a bug to me. So anyways, we'll come back to this one. We are here. We got this password and the email address. Now I get one test idea of doing a space here, and quickly let's assume that I'm doing a tab. So I'm in this field. So my cursor is here, marked here, it's blinking. At this point I think about why this email address not valid, because to my human eyes this one is a good format. And I'll be confused. Why is this application telling me there's an error? But application is, to our human eyes, it's correct. It looks good enough, and we are confused. But for the application, it's actually looking at this space here in the end. So that's seeing it as, oh, that's not a valid email address. It's not even truncating. Some of the applications actually truncate the space in the end, and then they actually fix the error for you. And some people actually say, please check for any spaces in between or in the email address, which could be in the end, or which could be in between, or which could be at the start. By saying that, we trigger the brain to think about, oh, let me see this. Oh, there is a space here. Let me do a backspace. So they can remove that way. I would also try doing a camel case here. What do we mean by camel case? So it's just like camel, how you see that, where it stores the water. So this is a camel case example, and this is lowercase, and if I'm doing uppercase, so I would try with different combination and then click elsewhere, because I'm clicking elsewhere to trigger the error message if there is any, because Juice Shop actually functions that way. But looks like they're handling it really well. Looks like. We haven't done much more deeper tests still. We'll go to the password. This is 11 of 20, 11 of 40. We had found a bug there as well with these things. Here there's 20, here there is 40. But anyways, we'll go ahead. We'll say show password advice here. Now, when this is here, it says contains at least one lower character. Yes, there is one lower at least. Contains one upper character. E is the example. Good. contains at least one digit here. We have at least one digit. Contains at least one special character. We have @ symbol. Contains at least 8 characters. So that is how much. So let's copy this and use our console and use a JavaScript property called length. We'll count this dot length. Well, that can be handy if you want to measure the text, how many characters exist. You can copy anything and use them between the double quotes, which makes it as a string. So if we say type of example, it says string as yeah. So it's the response is string. That's the data type because we have given it within the double quotes. That's where it says string. So we're here and it looks like everything is good, but let's try clicking on register, but we cannot click on register because we have to at least choose this. I will say nothing just for my test activity, and once we type nothing, you see that this will become enabled. So they are doing a JavaScript validation. If everything is entered, only then enables this button. Now we haven't still completed the test. We are not going to click on the register button at all in this. Let's try looking into the password here. Let's change this to something else, and there's an error message called passwords do not match. Now if I remember using my flashback skill where I think about what did I do before and what happened now. The passwords do not match. It's not ending with a dot here. Now that's a inconsistency to me because if I remove this here, there's a dot here, but this one there's no dot. And once I remove this text here, this error message has to go off instead of saying, but maybe it's comparing with no value here and then there's a value here. That's why it's not removing this off, but that's something to think about later, but I'll proceed from here. So let's say we'll come back to again same thing. 9.8. When I do the same thing, don't you think that okay it has to become green here? That's a bug to me. So why is it still showing red color border? Even if I click elsewhere, it's still showing red color. Now that's a bug, how the code is not behaving really well, even though the passwords are same. But I entered this first, I removed this thing in this field, I went in a reverse way, and then it did not correct this. It still says passwords do not match. It's not clearing the traces of the action which I did before a few seconds. It's still retaining there. That's a bug to me as well. But to correct that, well, even though it's a bug, so let me correct that. So I'll do Control X or Command X on my machine. Oh wow, what happened here? That's interesting, this behavior. It says please repeat your password and passwords do not match, and one of the bug here is it's overlapping. This toggle button is overlapping on this message here, and if it says please repeat your password, why is it saying passwords do not match? That has to go off. That should be removed. And there is one more bug. So moving on, I will type the same thing here, and then it says, oh, it's a green now. So we found different bugs in the form itself, the way we were traversing through different text fields here and saying, oh, you know what, maybe I will correct, first I'll enter repeat password for some reasons, and then I'll correct the password. In that case, we got a bug like passwords do not match was still remaining there. That's a fix that developers have to do. All right, so let me breathe for a few seconds because I'm doing it continuously and I'm not taking a break, and there is no editing work when I'm doing this. Cool. So we are here and these things happen. I think probably they could have showed green mark here, tick mark, but looks like even this one is still good. But what happens if I enter only one character? This shows up here. There's a password strength meter which shows red, and if I enter @ it shows green, and if I do 1, then it increases again, and if I just do something else, add more, it increased again. Then I will add one more character. That becomes a strong password, I guess. Okay, but why is it showing this color? And how would I know what is this color? How would I report in my bug? In one of my videos before, I did that eyedropper usage where I drag it to the color name here and then it shows up. And quickly I will do that here. Click on elements and styles. The styles is at the bottom. Let me drag it to the top. Anywhere wherever I see a square, because I can use a eyedropper from there. I click on this. I drag it to on this color. And what's the color value here? Let me click on that exact color. I'm sorry. Okay, let me click. That's the color value. So I will take and I'll mention this in bug report. The progress bar or the password strength meter had this color value. So it actually helps the developer to go and search in the cascading style sheet or JavaScript file or whatever. They get to really understand what is this hexadecimal color. You can also use RGB color values and other options as well, but I won't be speaking much about those things here. So this one could be green. It shows everything is green. We'll move ahead doing the same thing here, example 98. Now there is one more problem, and what is that? Even though these passwords are different, why am I not seeing the error message if I click here? And when is that happening? That's something for you to see. That can be a kind of a challenge for you to identify why it's happening that way. So you can go to this URL, Juice Shop by OWASP, and see why that's happening that way. And why is it not giving any error message here? So you can pause the video and then try it by yourself, but I'll go ahead from here. And I will also tell you the answer to that if you are continuing, okay? Cool, so why is there no error message even if I do it here because passwords do not match? The reason is I need to click here, and let's say I click here. It still doesn't show any error message, but maybe I'll remove this. Then it says, because some action has to happen either in this form actually, or there is some permutation or combinations here which we can use. That's the problem here. So we'll come back to our own password, which is example 98. And again, this is a bug which we found that before. So we'll go back and enter 8 so that we see green color here. And we saw show password advice. I'm actually interested in going to the naughty strings here. That is on GitHub. So you can get all the naughty strings here. This is amazing if you want to really do a data coverage of various UTF-8 characters, UTF-16 characters, or using the emojis and all these windings and all those characters that you see in your character map of your computer. So for this case, what I'll do is I'll use the hearts here. I'll copy this and use it in my password. Well, that says the error message here. Password must be 5 to 40 characters long. But how many characters are these? Let me try counting them. Again, we'll use those double quotes. Paste it here and then say length. That's 44. No problem. So what I'll do is I'll remove those characters. And it says 39. And I'll just use this, and it's also including a space. But if it's 39, I'll enter one character here. Now we understand how emojis can have a different size. If I paste an emoji, it gives an error message. But if I enter A, it doesn't give an error message. Now that's the problem here. It's not a problem. It's something for you as a test engineer to understand how the emojis, what's the size of emojis and how it's processing, and what's the size of these characters here. Because if I paste emoji, it says 40 characters are, it's already 40 characters. But if I enter A, it doesn't give me an error message. That's why it's saying 39. So I'll enter one character here. I'll copy the same thing and go to the next field, paste it. So both of these fields are correct. That's why you see contains at least one lower character, that's correct. One upper character, that's wrong. One at least one digit, we don't have any digit here. Contains at least one special character. Where do we have a special character? Maybe this is a special character for the application. We don't know. Contains at least 8 characters. Well, at least there are 8 characters. Now let's do one thing. It's not a strong password, but there's no error message as well. If you see the green border here and the green border, but if it's toggle off, how would somebody understand there's an error here? But maybe they're not actually looking into that, but the password advice shows that it needs to have one upper and one digit at least. Only then it succeeds. No worries, we'll turn it this, we'll assume that we have turned this toggle off. We'll click on register button and see what's the message. Okay, we got registered. So which speaks about the violation of those password policy or advice itself. They are saying the advice, but that advice can be just as an advice. It's not like a policy. We don't know that at this point. But that's a good information to have. So we'll go back to the register button and we will just enter. And what do we call this? When you double click here, you see example@example.com. It's actually auto completing. In some of the applications like banks or something, wherever you have very high sensitive information, you can actually turn that off because we don't want to extract those email addresses, whichever is used or was used from this machine. So what can we do about that? The fix is on the client side, click on this. In this field, we need to have an autocomplete attribute where I'll say add attribute. Why I'm showing these things to you is so that even you know what could be the fixes. So autocomplete equals to off. So autocomplete is the attribute name and off is the value. You can see it here. So click elsewhere and let me double click here. So I'm double clicking and I don't see any text from the history, the email address. So that's a fix for that as well if you want to actually disable that. But anyways, what we'll do is we'll refresh the page again. But I saw something here. What was that? Whenever I refresh, you see those titles here. Like user underscore registration, title underscore name, email. That's very quick here. I refresh. You saw that. I refresh again. Keep observing here all these field values. You will see that those variable names here. Click on refresh. It's loading. I don't know. Okay, so it showed us that. Where are those values coming from? And I would still report that saying the transition has to be really smooth, where it doesn't show the variable names on the page. Don't allow them, and only once the DOM gets all those values here, only then render them on the form or the web page. That could be my suggestion to the developers if they have to do it. So we were here. But where were those title underscore registration and everything coming from? Or even this error message, where is this coming from? So let me copy that. Let me go to the developer tools, paste it here. It says 1 of 1. But I'm not getting other error messages here. It's only loading whatever has to be rendered on your web page. That's not really helping me well. But I need to also understand, are these error messages like clicking here, clicking elsewhere, clicking here, clicking elsewhere? Where are these error messages coming from? Are they coming from client side or server side? So how will I know this? One way is to disconnect my internet and then try clicking here and then seeing is there error message once I click elsewhere. If there is error message, that's happening in the client side. But let's say you don't want to disconnect the internet because maybe you are doing a screen share with somebody and showing these things. At this point, I would like to give you a tip here in the network tab. You can actually disable the internet only for that specific tab. So if I refresh the page here, it loads up the whole form, clean state. All these are requests here loaded here. So I will delete this, clear these things. And now in the network tab, you see something called as no throttling here. Click on this drop down and click on offline option. So once I click on offline, this doesn't have internet. Your other tabs will have internet. So no worries about that. So you can use your work for any other tabs, whatever you are doing. On this tab, we have turned it off. You can see it here, offline. So there is no internet. That's why you are seeing these requests going to server, they are failing. So let me click here and click elsewhere. If the error message still shows up here, it means it's coming from the client side, not the server side, because on the server side, we will not see the request. Let's see that. Click here and click elsewhere. We see the error message and there's no request going on. This one is a image, PNG image, so we can ignore that. We click here and then here. And then again the error message, no server side, it's a client side. This is how you can understand, oh, these are the client side error messages or client side activity and not the server side activity. That's one of the ways to do it. There are multiple ways to do it, but if you are only looking into the network tab by keeping your internet on like this, by saying no throttling, that means that maybe they are sending so many AJAX requests. They're like multiple, like 20 or 30. You get confused there, what's happening. So one other way is to disconnect this way here. I mean, what I use. And again, depends on the application type, how the code is being written. So you need to understand about the application, the code, the architecture, okay, how people are doing that. And once you spend some time on that, you can actually use different ways to extract the information. Here, even if you don't look into the architecture or the code or anything, you can do a reverse engineering style of learning where you use your network tab and use the application and you feature tune the application to understand what are these features. Are they using client side, server side, what's happening there, AJAX requests, no AJAX requests, is it a single page application or we have different frames in the single web page itself, all those information. Now we haven't still completed registration testing because there's so much, we can go so deeper. What we'll do here is we'll say show password advice. It gives all these things. We'll come back with this emojis here. We'll do the password and then again repeat password. This is green. This is interesting bug here. If this is green, why is this red color border? Why is this showing error message here? I think if this is an error message, right, the red color border, even this has to be red because this is dependent on this field here. So that's also one UI UX bug probably, or it's a functional bug itself because the function is not working as intended. We'll not really go deeper in terms of, okay, do we call a functional bug or a security bug or UI UX bug. We'll just see how to test this deeper and then understand how to categorize them later. I think it depends from company to company and people to people, depending on application type, what they are actually looking at. I wouldn't really go into that. So let's see, this is a bug to me. Now let's say I again enter some characters here. So are they going to become green? I think they will turn to tick mark here. So once I enter uppercase, there's a tick mark. So whenever you do it only, okay, let me do this. This advice is being shown only with this field. So I enter uppercase A. So it shows contains at least one uppercase character. So I enter one lowercase, that gets ticked. Then I enter one digit, that gets ticked. One special character, that gets ticked. and one at least 8 characters. I'll enter 1A lowercase. But why did it become green? Why this one? Okay, no, I think this is only the advice. You can follow it or you need not follow it, I guess. I enter one more A, one more A, one more A. Now those are 8 characters here. That's why everything is tick mark. So we'll use the same thing here, but I think that we did good enough tests on this registration page as of now. I'm also getting tired, so I think we'll go on to the next one, but we'll again come back in the next episodes. We can do that. Security question. So I would say mother's maiden name. Well, I will use the security quality criterion here in terms of testing. Well, even my friend knows what's a mother's maiden name. So, no. Mother's birth date, well, people can guess it really well. So, from the security standpoint, there are no good security questions. There are only probably good enough. There's no good enough security questions. So, I think we need to use different styles of authentication mechanisms like two-factor or some other authentication mechanisms. But I think this could be outdated as well because you can do a brute forcing. Somebody can understand. They will try to talk to some friend of mine in my school and ask him, when was the birth date? Can you go to your Facebook? Can you go to your Instagram and check for this? Data is already there. So be careful when you ask these kind of security questions. We'll go to the answer and we can enter anything actually. This is a tip from me. Even if you say mother's maiden name and then the application is not changing, the application is not changing these questions because of the feedback. So what you can do is you can enter something else. And if somebody is asking you your PIN number of your credit card, don't enter those sensitive information, please. Because some people used to ask them before. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody is asking even now as a social engineering attack as well. Don't do that. So register button is still disabled. Now this is interesting one. Now this says this cannot be changed later. We'll come back to this button, but the security question says this cannot be changed later. This becomes my test. I'll try to change it later, and those are my tests. And here, this is my test as well. Please provide an email address. Well, my email address is a@a.com. Well, that's a valid one. I don't think so. They're single letter domain names. I think the minimum is 2 letters. Not sure about that, but I'm just letting you know. You can try to go and read more about it or explore. But we only test this kind of format. And people who test only for this email address, well, you must know that there are subdomains as well. So this is a domain.com. And this is a valid email address as well. So we'll say subdomain 1. And this is the username part. Username part and subdomain 1. And we can also have subdomain 2 dot. Well, that's a red color because there is one more dot here. The regular expression is failing there. That's why it shows up, this one. But you can also have a chain of subdomains, and that's a valid email address. So be careful. Test all these various things of how your email addresses function. The best way I do is I read a lot of documentation, not the requirement document, please. I read the W3C RFCs. So these are W3C. So we go to W3C here. And you see a lot of RFCs, different RFCs. So if I say email address RFC, we'll go to the first one, or this one, or RFC 2822, and you can read more about those aspects. We are here, and I think that we will be stopping it here. Thank you very much. I hope this was really useful to you, and have a great day. Thank you.